At this time, if you'll please remain standing, our first speaker will get to hear from the great Kahan Shaul Hawkins.
Shabbat Shalom again. You may be seated, brethren. You may be seated, brothers and sisters. If everyone will be turning over to Acts 20, we are going to do as the Apostle Shaul did so many years ago, because we're facing, in fact, the very same thing that the apostles faced, and in fact, all the prophets before them, clear back to Abel, faced the same thing, which are the deception of the followaways, okay? And we need to get this firmly in our minds. So I'd like to ask everyone, please, I hope you brought a pen and a paper or a notebook or something to write with. Please write these scriptures down here and please refer back to them. We should already have these just about committed to memory with all the sermons we've been bringing on this subject. But remember the Apostle Shaul in Acts 20:31. I may not give you time to turn there. That's why you need to be writing these down. Therefore watch and remember that for the period of 3 years, now we're going to go, we've been going for longer than 3 years, but Shaul says he did not cease. I did not cease to warn everyone night and day. Now, if it was great enough for the Apostle Shaul not to cease the warning, then we're not going to cease it either. Please look at verse 30. He says, among your own selves will men arise, speaking perverse things to draw away disciples after themselves. Remember, Shaul said that these last days would be perilous times. Yes, they are dangerous. We are living in the most dangerous time. And yes, we are in the protected place. But that isn't like standing under an umbrella in the rain. We can get that protection removed from us in a heartbeat if we turn in any way from what the House of Yahweh has taught us. He says, and he instructs those who are the leaders, therefore be on guard for yourselves and the whole flock over which the Holy Spirit has made you overseers, and to feed the called out ones. Yes, we are the called out ones. And our overseer continues to feed us, and he's never ceased in following this example of the Apostle Shaul and all those before him. The called out ones. Now, where are we? We're called out. We're called out. Out of what? Remember, Yahweh says, come out of her, my people. That's the calling. Come out. Come out of this world. Come out of their ways. And where are we called to? The house of Yahweh. We are called to the house of Yahweh. There's no other way Yahweh would call a person except calling them here. Remember Deuteronomy 12:5. We're commanded. And no, the laws are not done away with. There is an old covenant and a new covenant. If you want to serve Yahweh, you must come to the place. And that he chose to place his name, and what he placed there, when he placed his name there, was not just the name Yahweh, because it's in all the dictionaries. Anybody can put up a sign on their front yard or on the internet or write a letter saying, I am Yahweh, I'm from Yahweh. Yahweh sent me to you. Anybody can use that word, but it's got to be his authority. Now, where is the authority given? Amos 3:7. No authority, no work, unless it was prophesied. It must be the prophesied work. Please get these things in your mind. If it's not the prophesied work, don't listen to it. And the prophesied work has a name. His name is Yisrayl Hawkins. By the way, I am Yisrayl Hawkins, and I hope every one of you are too. Praise Yahweh. All right, turn over to Galatians 1. Galatians 1 in verse 6. And remember, he cried with tears day and night. Here he says, I am astonished that you have so quickly turned away from the one who called you into the love of the Messiah to another message. And that's the thing with the followaways. They too were called here. They too received the message. They too vowed with their mouth that they would believe it, live it, uphold it, etc. Not that there is any other glad tidings, just that there are some who trouble you and are trying to pervert the message of Messiah. They'll tell you, you don't need a teacher. You don't need to listen to anybody. You don't need anybody to show you the way to salvation except Yahshua. Well, really, as we're going to see in a few scriptures here, why on earth did the apostles then, some 30-odd years after Yahshua was killed, resurrected, and ascended to Yahweh's right hand, why were they still telling the people, you learned Yahweh's way from us, you must obey us, if you don't obey us, you're out? Why would they be saying that? Why wouldn't they be saying, hey, you don't need us, you don't need to listen to us, you got Yahshua as your teacher? Why would they be saying that? Think about that. To another message. They pervert that message. But he says, but even if we or a Malach from heaven, or one who claims to be from heaven, having authority from heaven, should preach a message other than what we preach to you, may he be accursed. That means he's going to receive the death penalty. He's accursed. Remember, he's given to the curse of death. Now, he didn't get the second death, but that's what he's talking about, because these are followaways who knew the truth and departed from it. And he's astonished that you would follow it. Turn over to Colossians. Colossians 2. Colossians 2 and verse 4. Now I say this so that no one deceives you with persuasive words. Yes, they will use persuasive words. They will quote scriptures. But if you'll pay attention and rehearse the plan of Yahweh, that's why I'm so glad we're going back to those going on to perfection sermons, because Pastor and he really laid the foundation of the apostles and prophets, drove that home to us here, going on to perfection, and showed us this is what we need, where we need to start. That was just the starting point, and then we go on to perfection. But notice in there what he says, catch what he says in those sermons about the teacher. All right, about the teacher and how you're supposed to treat the teacher. He says, beware that no one leads you away. Now, the followaways will talk about, the humility and submission we need to show. They'll refer to it as being led around by the nose. Led around by the nose. And that's how they mock and describe the humility and submission that Yahshua said that was a chief requirement to enter the kingdom and to keep Yahweh's laws. You can't start keeping the laws until you're taught the laws. You can't be an effective student until you humble yourself as a little child. These are so simple things to do, but very hard for the human character with the choices that the human character makes. But they talk about righteousness as being led around by the nose, but look what Shaul said. It's those who follow after and listen to the followaways that are led away like a prize because of philosophy, worldly philosophy. They got their 10 steps, their 1 step, their 3 steps out the door before they get started, okay? So don't let this philosophy or empty false statements according to the traditions of men. Yes, in rejecting the authority placed in Deuteronomy 12:5, they go back to Christianity of Egypt when Moshe had to say, do not do as we're doing here this day, everyone doing what is right in his own eyes, determining for themselves. Because none of the followaways tell the same story other than, you don't have to listen to Israel Hawkins. But listen to me. It's so ridiculous to think you don't need a teacher. If someone comes up and starts telling you that, You don't need to listen to the teacher. Realize this. At that very moment, they are teaching you. And if you listen to them, you are now following that teacher. And I don't care if you hear it from a person, read it in a book, see it online, think you're being inspired, because you ingested one or more substances. And I don't care if they're legal or illegal by the world. Pork is legal in the world. Did you know that? They legalized it. You can go buy it. You can fill your body with worms. And you can take that along with, if they want to legalize marijuana. And you'll end up in the same place, filled with worms. And you ought to see these worms in a body and what they do. It's not a pretty sight. Look at 16. And he says, therefore, because they're going to lead you away. What's the first thing they lead you away from? The keeping of the Sabbath. And you don't keep it correctly. You may come and sit here with a frown on your face, disbelieving everything, trying to disprove everything that's said. You're not keeping the Sabbath, because that's not how a humble little child keeps the Sabbath. But so they condemn you in doing these things, in the eating and drinking, in the observance of a feast day or a new moon or a Sabbath. And because of your attitude, that shadow of protection is gone. Let no man deprive you of your reward, actually doing it on purpose. Because they have left, they're trying to get you to leave and follow them. As though in humility of mind. Oh yes, I'm so humble. If you'll just listen to me, you'll see how humble I am. But don't listen to that other guy. He's, don't listen to that Israel Hawkins. Intruding into things that they do not know or understand. Being puffed up by their own carnal minds, their carnal understanding. Now turn over to 2 Timothy 3. 2 Timothy 3. As we said, these are perilous times. And these people that come to you, they have a form of holiness. They'll even quote Bible verses to you. They may quote you the whole Bible, the whole book of Yahweh, but they don't understand it because they have rejected the plan of Yahweh. Having a form of holiness, but they deny the authority of it. Yes, if there's salvation, there must be an authority. There must be an authority to preach it. And we'll see that not in the so-called Old Covenant. We'll see it in the New Testament, if that's what you so want to call it. But denying the authority of it. And what does he tell you to do when these people come to you? Circle that. From such turn away. Turn away. Yeah, I don't care if it's your sister, your brother, your father, your mother, your son, your daughter, your dog, your cat, your fish, your bird, whatever it is, from such turn away. And these were Yeshua's instructions. He said, I have not come to bring peace, but a sword, to set one family member against another. Not that he wants you to be fighting, as we'll see, but they're going to not want to go along with the house of Yahweh, and they're going to try to pull you out. And he says, for these are the sort who creep into the houses of Yahweh, and they've done so throughout history, and that's what Shaul said, among your own selves will men rise up. Will they creep in here? They're a bunch of creeps, and lead away silly women who are loaded down with sins, captured by various lusts. And that's the key right there, as we'll get to. Notice they're always learning, always quoting scriptures, always writing essays about the scriptures, but never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. And then he tells them, remember these things. Continue in the things that you have learned. Oh, you had to learn them. And have firmly believed, knowing from whom you have learned them. Yes, you had to learn it from somebody. Now, it's 2 Kephah 2. 2 Kephah 2. And he's in verse 1 through 3, he warns about false prophets who will secretly bring in heresies. And then he says in verse 18, They speak great swelling words of worthlessness. They allure through the lust of the flesh the ones who have barely escaped from those who live in error. While they promise them liberty, they themselves are the servants of corruption. Liberty? You're free, they say. Don't be a slave. You're free. What a lie. What a huge deception. Romans 6:16 ought to pop into your mind immediately. I don't care who you are in this world, if you're living on this planet, you belong to and you are a slave to somebody. That is a fact. You cannot escape it. Do you not know that whom you yield yourselves as slaves to obey, his slaves you are, whom you obey, whether of sin which leads to death, or of obedience which leads to righteousness. But you're a slave either way. But thank Yahweh, though you were once the slaves of sin, yes, we were all once serving sin, serving our own lusts. You have become slaves of righteousness. All right, slaves of righteousness, and we're commanded to yield to that righteousness in complete obedience. Got through 1 page out of 5 here. Now, turn over to Romans 10. Romans 10 and 14 and 15. Please mark that down. Shaul proves here, in order for you to get salvation, you had to hear the message. Well, you can put your ear to the sky or the ground or wherever, to a tree, and you'll never hear Yeshua's voice except coming from a teacher, a human being teacher, a man. All right? There must be a teacher. There's always a teacher. Like we said earlier, even if someone teaches you, there's no teacher, that person just became a teacher. How ridiculous. So why not follow the one sent? Because he says, now, this was written 60 CE. Some 30 or so years after Yeshua died, was resurrected, sitting at Yahweh's right hand, and he's telling you there's going to be a one sent, and you better obey him. Now, why didn't he say the one sent came and left? No one left to obey. You don't need to obey anybody. But the apostles insisted on it. 1 Thessalonians 4:1 says, just as you have learned from us. Well, why did they need to listen to the apostles? Yeshua was their head. Maybe that's why they killed the apostles. They didn't want to listen to him anymore. But the 2 Thessalonians 2:15, therefore, brothers, stand firm and hold fast the teachings. It says traditions, but these are the traditional law that you had from the beginning, as Yochanan said, which you have been taught, whether through our preaching or our letter. Now, he gives instruction here. What do you do when someone starts disobeying, walking disorderly? Verse 6, he says, 2 Thessalonians 3, verse 6, he says, repress every brother that walks disorderly. Disorderly, not humble, not teachable as a little child. Repress means to make stand in order, to keep down or hold back, to put down, subdue, to severely control as to prevent development or expression, so that they're not out teaching and pulling people away. And notice in verse 14, and if anyone does not obey our word, that is the word of the one sent. And yes, there is a one sent in these last days. Otherwise, there would be no work of Yahweh. There had to be a man spoken of, chosen in advance by the prophets, who would set this in order, who would offer us salvation. You can't find any other way unless you go back to stupid Christianity, which then again you're following a teaching. And you're following a teacher. But he says, if anyone does not obey our word in this letter, note that person and do not keep company with him. Don't associate with them. Deuteronomy 8:13 says, do not even listen to them. We've brought this out. Do not listen to them, in order that he may be put to shame. Yet do not regard him as an enemy, but admonish him as a brother. Stand up to him. Say, I'm not going to listen to that garbage. You're speaking against the plan of Yahweh. You're trying to lead me away from the only one that can lead me to salvation, and I'm not going to put up with it. Don't put up with it. Now, it says, admonish him as a brother. Do not regard him as an enemy. That's in the beginning. Turn over to Titus 3:9. But 3:10, a man who is a heretic, one who argues, disputes, separates from, wants to debate the truth. There is no debate in the house of Yahweh. It's a one-way street, the knowledge from Yahweh to us. Yahweh doesn't need our input into the truth. He never asks for it. And if we do have a question now, you can put a question in the coffer, and the question will be answered. But when you get that answer, that's the final answer. Ask at Abel, of Abel, and that settles the matter. Look that up. Settles it. It's over. He says, but a man who is a heretic and arguing after the first and second warning, reject. Reject, because they're condemned by their own words. All right? And they want to debate. Well, Proverbs 14:7 says, and we're commanded over and over, even in verse 9, avoid foolish speculations, contentions, that's debates, and strivings about the law, for they are unprofitable. 2 Timothy 2:23 says, have nothing to do with debates. There is no debate. There's no argument. When Shaul said that the house of Yahweh was the pillar and ground of the truth, the very next verse he said, this is without controversy. There is no argument. I will not listen to an argument or another viewpoint. Romans 6:16 tells us there's two viewpoints, Yahweh's and Satan's. If you disagree with the pillar and ground of the truth, you are trying to promote Satan's viewpoint, and we're not going to have it. Or as Proverbs 14:7 says, when you perceive no knowledge on the lips of a fool, leave his company. And if it gets that bad, we make them stay away from our company. Galatians 5 says, debating and strife is one of the works of the flesh. Right up there with adultery, fornication, sodomy. Where do you think all those things arose from? That first argument that was presented on earth was in the Garden of Eden. Has Yahweh indeed said? That's where sodomy started. That's where all these curses and the defilement that we see in the plants and animals now started with a debate. A debate over Yahweh's work. Now, 1 Yochanan 1. 1 Yochanan 1. But we've got to follow this pattern that Yahweh gives us here. We've got to follow this pattern that He gives. Now, in Yochanan 1, 1 Yochanan 1, he says, for if they left us, they were never part of us. They never truly humbled themselves. They never truly repented. Look back at 2 Timothy 4. Because he says they would heap teachers to their ears. For the time come when they will not endure, 2 Timothy 4:3, sound doctrine, but after their own lusts they will heap teachers to themselves who will tickle their ears, telling them what they want to hear. And as Jacob said, they're drawn away by their own lusts. They want to disobey something that the house of Yahweh has taught us, which is the laws and the prophecies. And so because they lust after these things, they will give ear to another teacher who will tell them, oh, no, you don't have to listen to that, Israel Hawkins. You don't have to go with that. But the scriptures plainly tell us to reject those who would speak in that way. And when we join in with these followaways and listen to them, their sin becomes our sin. because they feel encouraged and they don't seek humility and repentance. Now, if we would do what Yahweh says and rebuke them to their face and have nothing at all to do with them, and I don't care what relation they are to you, no fellowship, no keeping company, we would actually help them, because that's Yahweh's way of turning them around, and it's actually love. Because when you listen to a fall away, it's actually an act of hatred, because you take away their opportunity for repentance. Did you realize that? You think you're showing them love by listening? No. And to close here, turn over to Hebrews 13, written in 64 CE, and he's still telling them here. Hebrews 13:7. Remember those who have the rule over you. Somebody had the rule over them, because he speaks at length about Yahshua, but he's referring to others, those others other than Yahshua, who have spoken the word of Yahweh to you, and consider their way and followed their example. In verse 17, he says, obey those who have the rule over you. And that word rule is the root word of the word Israel. If there's any doubt or question in your mind who he's prophesying of in these last days. And submit yourselves. Do your part, that they may do so with joy and not with grief, for that is unprofitable to you. So, let us obey, because Yahweh, in Deuteronomy 18:18, he promised in the law that he would put his words in a certain man's mouth, and that man, we must obey everything he speaks. So our last scripture here is Jacob 1:21. Therefore, put away all this filthiness and superabundance of wickedness, and receive with meekness the written law which is able to save your souls. And now if everyone will please stand, it's my great honor and privilege to present to you the one who has Yahweh's words in his mouth, who will speak to us this day, the greatest teacher in the world, Kahan Israel Abel Hawkins.
Shalom, everyone. Praise Yahweh. You may be seated. That's a wonderful welcome message to Yahweh right there. Praise Yahweh for it. And welcome everyone. All the new ones too. We saw you coming in, and welcome home. Praise Yahweh. May the peace of Yahweh be with each and every one of you. We had a great week this week. Apparently, the word is spreading from mouth to mouth, as well as from television and internet. We had one day, this is the most we've ever had now in one day, but in one day this week, there was 115 people requested the 2 witness pack. There's going to be more than that. There's going to be thousands of them very soon, every day, requesting that, requesting information from Yahweh's house. The dinner today, don't start taking it lightly. And if you remember when Yahweh said, when you come into the land and you build your great houses, don't forget who gave you that. And don't forget Yahweh, because he's the one that makes this possible. If you would look up the statistics and see how many people could actually have a meal of antelope. Now you think about that, antelope, wild antelope. And yet you're blessed with that today, and have been several times. Sushi, only the rich people can eat sushi. You're the richest people, the most blessed people on the face of the earth. I see, recipe to share. If you have a recipe to share. That's what it was. Sometimes I scribble. I'm in a hurry and hard to make out what I'm talking about. But anyway, if you have a recipe to share that you like and you think the whole house of Yahweh would like it, nothing is blessed unless it's shared. You know, having something and keeping it to yourself, there's no joy in it. The joy is in sharing with the body of believers, and remember that. But if you have one, want to share it, come to the cafeteria or call them and ask for the supervisor, and let's get it in action. The hot links, clean hot links, there's none in the world clean except right here in the house of Yahweh. And you're going to have all of that tonight at the new moon celebration. No one on earth celebrates the new moons according to the law of Yahweh except His house. They try to imitate, but it's not done. You can't do it. Let's see, there was one more thing I wanted to share with you about the lowly grasshopper. We got abundance this year, and I told you in Israel you could buy those that was chocolate covered. Now, I never did eat one of those until yesterday. And somebody gave me a small ice cream cone with a chocolate covered grasshopper sitting on top of it, and I ate that first, and I'm glad I did. It's so delicious. Goes with ice cream perfectly. Chocolate grasshopper with ice cream. You can't. You talk about blessings, brother. You can't. You just can't beat it. The grasshopper. Now keep this in mind as I read you this, because you must have potassium and magnesium in your body at the same time in order for your body to absorb calcium. Potassium and magnesium, right? That's right. You got to have those two in order for your body to absorb. Now, there's very few foods that have this together. Well, let me tell you, the grasshopper does. And it has 8.82 vitamin A, vitamin B 0.07, very little vitamin B. Vitamin C, it has 8.64. Calcium, it has 42.16 calcium. Now, along with that, it also has 131.2 potassium and 8.21 magnesium in the grasshopper. It also has iron, 1.96. I got some recipes that I'll share with anyone that wants them. The small grasshopper also has the large grasshopper has 20.6 protein and has 6.1 fat, 3.9 carbohydrates, and 35.2 calcium, and 5.0 iron. Well, that's what you've been snarling your nose up at, and I don't think you should. But the grasshopper recipes, there's so many of them. I don't know if you saw on the news or not, but they had a restaurant in California that was serving grasshoppers, and they said people came from their business was building, and people were coming for thousands of miles to experience the taste of grasshopper. And of course, they're not shut down, but they stopped them from getting the grasshoppers from Mexico. So now they're hunting another source of grasshoppers because they were getting all their grasshoppers from Mexico. Nobody in the United States wanted to come out and catch them. As only if you noticed the news yesterday, the farmers were terribly upset in Alabama, I believe it was, because they had their crops in the field, and the goofiness of our government, not wanting the only people on earth, which is the Mexicans people, the Mexican Hebrews across the border, the only ones that would come and pick crops was they, and now the crops are going to waste, and they said, well, why don't you hire the local people that's out of work? They said, there ain't no way you could get these people out here in the field to pick this fruit and vegetables. Cut their own throat. I could tell them how to straighten this problem out, but it'd be easy to straighten the problem out. They're wanting the taxes from these people. It would be simple to take the taxes from people who are illegal, as they call illegal. They're not illegal. They have as much right here as anyone else in America. That's what the Statue of Liberty is all about. Come, they said. Well, they came. Now, get out of here. We don't want you. It's stupid, and it looks like our politicians, their minds are blocked for some reason. It's like they can't make a right move anymore. It's more trouble this way than that way, and so they pass more laws, and, well, that brings more problems. Anyway, I could tell you how to solve this if anybody wants to know. Meanwhile, of course, Babylon is getting more confused all the time, and that's the point of what I just brought out. But Yahweh has a plan. I want everyone to get to where you can see your books of Yahweh, because there are certain things said here that I want you to see and memorize and keep it in mind. We're the only ones, brethren, that Yahweh is working with at this time. He doesn't work with people outside of His house for salvation or for future jobs in His kingdom. The only place you're going to receive a reward from Yahweh for this coming future kingdom is in His house. And the Scripture is very plain on that. And this is what I want you to read for yourself in your own book of Yahweh. Mark it, highlight it, read it 20 times a day, or put it on the blackboard 100 times, whatever you have to do to remember it. Remember what the teachers in the schools used to do. I don't know if they still do it. Bill, get up there and write 100 times, I will not do this anymore. And that's what I did. I obeyed the teacher. I wasn't trying to disobey. I never had that in my body to want to disobey the teacher or anyone who was trying to teach me anything. I want to learn. But in Genesis 1, we read that because there's a reward here. The only reason mankind was created, was to build a family for Yahweh. And the ones that don't fit in that family, there's no use for them. They were created for that purpose. That's what mankind was created for. And Yahweh shows that. He shows first His sons screwing up the earth, making it unlivable. And then He had to straighten that out. And then He said, I will make man in my image after my likeness, and I'm going to give him rulership. If you notice first, He says, I will make him in my image and my likeness. Now, those that don't want to be made in Yahweh's image or likeness will not be given rulership. Rulership comes with eternal life also, hanging on to it. An eternal job that He says will never be changed. Never, that position that He holds in Yahweh's house will never go away. He'll always hold that, and one of them translates it power. But it's verse 26. First, I will make him in my likeness and my image. Well, where does he do this? It's not at the Baptist church. It's not with the popes who kill and conquer and conquering and to conquer. It's not with any of the religions today except the House of Yahweh, and Yahweh plainly says that. You know, nobody wanted that name before Yahweh established it and made it popular. And now that we're reaching the entire world and people are coming in with questions from all over the world, then people want the name House of Yahweh. Of course, Yahweh won't give it to them. He only has that for his house. Let's go over to Yochanan, the first chapter, Yochanan 3. Now remember what you just read there in Genesis 1:26. Genesis 1 verses 1 and 2 shows how the earth became void, stupid, led astray, darkness. That's the confusion you're seeing over the world today. And then Yahweh put the earth in action, built everything for mankind, and then he created mankind. And he placed him on the earth. You don't have to take the Holy Scriptures now. Science can prove with the DNA of the human being that it traces back to Noah, one family there, and then it goes further back. They can even trace it further back to one person. One person. Of course, they can't get the years straight. Some of them says 60 billion years, and and others say 60,000 years. So you can see a little bit of variance in their calculations. But it's actually 6,000 years that Yahweh has done this, that started with one woman. He started it for the purpose. Get this in your mind. What purpose? What did he start us for? To be a part of his kingdom. He made mankind. Have you got that? To be a part of his kingdom. And he's going to make you in his likeness and in his image, or he's going to burn you up and get you out of the way. You won't be in that kingdom and you won't have life unless you allow Yahweh to make you in his likeness and in his image. That's the total purpose of mankind. Remember this now. Don't let it slip your mind. You're here for one reason only. And unless you qualify by letting Yahweh make you in his image and likeness, you won't be here much longer. Revelations, you need to read Revelations 20. That's the final sentencing of those who make it and those who don't make it. And everybody's given the opportunity to make it. In fact, we are allotted 120 years. I don't think many people live that long today, but that's what you're allotted. And of course, if you die sooner, it means you were judged sooner. If Yahweh completely decided, no, you're not fit for it. In Yochanan 1 and verse 1, we see this plan that was shown to us now in Genesis 1:26. And he says, in the beginning was the plan of Yahweh. The plan was Yahweh's. It wasn't the God's plan. It was Yahweh's plan only. Yahweh's plan, and he has the full power to bring it about. That's what Isaiah says, that the last witness will actually take to all the world in the last days. That's the message, that Yahweh is the one that controls the power, not gods. There won't be any gods at the end of his plan. There wasn't any gods before him, and there won't be any after him, or after his plan is completed. In fact, all the gods will disappear from the universe before this thing is over. A god is what you see in the popes today. They rule over the people. Yeshua says you can't do this. This is not going to be in my kingdom. You can't rule over people. You lead, you guide, you direct, and that person must decide that he wants this righteousness. That's part of making him in Yahweh's image and in Yahweh's likeness. Teaching, training, guiding, correcting, scolding. Whatever we have to do to get the person straightened out and get them to go in this way so they can be made in Yahweh's likeness and image. Well, the plan is Yahweh's. The same plan was in the beginning with Yahweh. All things are being made or done according to it, and without it nothing was done that was done. Meaning Yahweh is guiding this total thing. Well, why is he letting all this hell take place right now with the sickness, the suffering, the wars, the destroying of people and tearing their bodies up, their minds up, making people, when they come, when they're born, the birth defects. Why is he allowing all of this? Why is he allowing all the deaths? Yahweh wants you to see and wants heaven to see how it gets out of control when they don't come to his house and allow themselves to be made in his image. Everyone else who refuses this, starting with Cain, is in continual war. Not only is the war in his members of his body, but he's suffering it throughout with the people who he mangles with, and the nations who they mangle with. What do you see but turmoil, death, wars, fighting, illegal lust? What do you see? You need to see it, Yahweh says. Make comparisons of what he wants you to be versus what is going on in this world right now. The woman was begging yesterday, saying, please don't run us out of here. We're not wanting anything from you. We're wanting to give to your society. We're out here picking the stuff in the sun for you while you hate us and want us out of this country. You can see the misery that's going on and the hatred around you. Versus Yahweh's way, which Yeshua was a perfect example of servitude to everyone he dealt with. And that, of course, is what we have got to be. That's what Yahweh is. He serves his people from day one. He serves his people. In this plan was life eternal. In this plan of making mankind into Yahweh's image and likeness is also life eternal. And the life was the light of mankind. Now the light shines in the darkness, but the darkness does not take hold of it. That is, right now, it doesn't. Yahweh calls out certain ones and opens their mind to understanding. Like Zebulun, he says, Zebulun's going to see the light. That was prophesied that they would. In the last days, someone else is going to see the light, and the house of Yahweh will be established in the last day. But in that time period, before Yeshua, Zebulun saw the light. The light, right here, the plan of Yahweh. The plan for Yeshua Messiah, who now sits at the right hand of Yahweh in power and authority, judging you, guiding you, coaxing you, encouraging you, placing little hints and thoughts in your mind. Be this way. Be this way. Don't let evil stir your mind or bitterness. Look at verse 12. But as many as received him, to those he gave authority. Remember now in Genesis 1:26, I'll make them in my likeness and in my image, then I will give them authority. The King James Version there, at the last of that, and all the other versions, including the Diaglott, has name. And of course the name is Yahweh, but the name there, that word, actually means authority, and it means Yahweh also means authority, because it's Yahweh's authority, and he's the one that's going to give it to you if you allow this to be done to you allow Him to make you in His image and in His likeness. But remember that, and you might put that there because it would help to have that word, because it means authority there in verse 12. But look, and notice also this received, and I want you to go back to this word. I've read it to you before. It means to take a thing due to agreement or law, and it is the law that if you allow Him to do this with you in the place and when He wants to do it, then it's the law that you are going to receive that, and you can rest assured that law is going to be fulfilled by Yahweh in order to obey Him. Do you know we're the only group on the face of the earth that's preaching submittance, obedience? There's no one on the face of the earth preaching this except His house. And of course, that's the main thing to having this, to obey. But this word receive here, let's hold your place here in Yochanan and go over to Isaiah 56. Because he talks about this very thing the prophets do here, and you've got to put it all together or you won't understand what he's saying. And this is what I want everyone now, please, everyone read this for yourself. I'll read it too in case you can't read. But those who can, please read. If you're stuck in a position where you can't read, we have classes where we'll actually teach you to read. Nothing is lacking in the house, brother. Look at Isaiah now, 56. It's found on page 565. Isaiah 56 and verse 1. He says, this is what Yahweh says. Yahweh is full authority, and this is what He says. And if you will pay attention, He's going to give you your salvation here. Keep the judgments and do justice, and then my salvation will be revealed to you. Keep my judgments and do justice, then this is preparing you for salvation. Salvation, that's the name of the Savior, Yeshua. Yahweh will save His people from their sins. Now, that does not mean everybody. It doesn't say that at all. In fact, he will save His people. Who do you belong to if you don't submit to Yahweh and practice His laws? 1 John 3, 7 and 8, you belong to Satan the devil. You don't belong to Yahweh. You have chosen. That's your choice, and you must choose who you want to belong to. Got that? Praise Yahweh. Now, that's do justice and judgments, follow His judgments, and you will be shown salvation. My salvation is near, soon to come, and my righteousness, that's again 1 Yochanan 3, 4, 7, and 8. My righteousness to be revealed. My righteousness. If you remember, the Savior said, in Matthew 6:33, He said, seek the kingdom of Yahweh and His righteousness. Seek the kingdom of Yahweh and Yahweh's righteousness. That's what you are to seek. You are to seek the kingdom of Yahweh and His righteousness if you want salvation. Then salvation will be given or made known to you, be revealed to you. Blessed is the man that does this, that seeks His righteousness, that seeks His salvation, that follows His judgments, that is willing to follow His judgment. Of course, there's another verse that goes with this. Where do you get His judgments? From His judges at His house. You've got to put all of this together, brethren. Go to His house. Deuteronomy 17. Deuteronomy 17. Go to His house and do what they tell you to do. That's His judgments. It comes from His house in the laws that they teach you at His house. verse 2, blessed is the man that does this, and the Son of Man who takes hold of it, who keeps my Sabbaths, that's the Sabbath day appointments. Did you get that? Who keeps my Sabbaths without polluting them. The way you keep his Sabbaths without polluting them is find out how you can be a slave. That's a beautiful word, the word slave. As Yeshua was to his people. That way you will have your mind on serving instead of your selfish self. You will be wanting to serve others instead of desiring that someone serve you. You'll be wanting to serve others. And you will be served in the process. It works that simply. Keep my Sabbaths from polluting them. You've got to keep them the way Yahweh and Yeshua did. Yeshua did not pollute the Sabbath by going and laying down on his bed, getting drunk, smoking marijuana or whatever. He didn't do any of his own pleasures. He became a servant to Yahweh's people on Yahweh's Sabbath, every Sabbath day. Fed them. He fed them food to eat. Without polluting his Sabbath and keeping his hand from doing evil. The evil is selfishness. It's selfishness, selfish desires, lust of your own body. You know, the things that come naturally, just doing the things that come naturally, after, of course, being taught by Satan, the Catholic Church, and who wants the democracy, which to them means freedom from the laws of Yahweh. If that's what you want, it's not going to last very much longer. And you must make the choice. You got to remember, it's you that's choosing. Now look at verse 3. Do not let the son of the stranger, or they translated this Gentile now, however you want to put it. It means you. Heathen even. Don't let the sons of the strangers to Yahweh. How many people are strangers to Yahweh? Everybody except his house. They're all strangers to Yahweh. They don't know Yahweh, and Yahweh doesn't know them. Unless he said it before the world began that he was going to call someone out of that group. That's the only way Yahweh would that's the only way that you would ever be known by Yahweh. Unless you saw some of Yahweh's people and you said, I think I want to be like them. Yahweh says, if you do, come to his house. Let all the males be circumcised. That's something else they're fighting against. Circumcision. And let them keep my Sabbaths. Come to my house, let them be circumcised, and let them keep my Sabbath. This is the way, then I will show you my salvation. You won't even know the way to salvation unless you do. Now this is what Yahweh is telling us to tell the whole world. And I'm fully aware that all of you know what I'm saying now, but there's billions of people out there right now waiting to hear this word. Do not let the son of the strangers or Gentiles or heathen, that can be translated either way you want to, who has joined himself to Yahweh. I just told you how you join. That's what Yahweh said to Moshe. That's part of the law. If anyone, any of the nations, none of the nations was barred from coming to Yahweh. There wasn't such a thing. There was never a bar to anyone. The only thing that could keep anyone back was their own choice. But if they decided they wanted to come to Yahweh, this is the way you do it. Keep my Sabbaths at my house. Speak saying, Yahweh has utterly separated me from his people. That's a lie. That's never been the truth. This is a lie of the religions, because they want you to believe that, and of course they want you to believe that it wasn't until Book 2 was written that the apostles were told to go before the Gentiles. The Gentiles being who? Strangers to Yahweh. Their baloney is confusing. It doesn't agree with anything in the Scriptures. Saying, behold, I am a dry tree. That is, I can't produce any fruit. I won't be blessed with anything. I won't receive a blessing. Well, that's not true. Verse 5, I will give to them, notice where now, please, everybody look. Everybody get this verse and notice, read it, the next three words. Everyone. It's found on page 565. It's verse 5. You got it? Everybody got it. Now, what does he say there? I will give to them where? Well, it must be the Catholic Church, the Baptist Church, Church of Christ. Oh, they got three major universities here. It's got to be them. Surely it's got to be them. Can you twist it some way to make it them? No way. You see that? You understand that? Now, we just saw it was Yahweh's plan. I'm going to make man in my likeness, in my image, and then I'm going to give them. I'm going to give them. Well, notice where? In my house. Even within my walls, a place, that is, this word place, if you look over to the side there, we didn't put very much of that in there. Strong's Concordance has a fourth of a page there, and it all means the same thing. It means authority, a position in Yahweh's house, in His family. This was the original plan. Yahweh made man. He created man for this purpose right here, to be a part of His house. Not a part of the work anywhere else that Satan has all over the world that's causing all the confusion. Well, shouldn't we go there and teach the peaceful solution? The peaceful solution is not, it doesn't stand on its own. The peaceful solution stands with all the laws of Yahweh and the plan of Yahweh. The peaceful solution is not even being offered to everyone today. Salvation is not offered to everyone today. Salvation is only offered to those who choose to be a part of Yahweh's house. You go to His house, you learn His judgments, you decide to obey it, then I will give him salvation. That's what He says. We just read it right here. Then I will show him my salvation. After I do this, then I will show him my salvation. I will give to them in my house. In my house. That limits it. It limits it to a particular place. Deuteronomy 12:5 said, seek the habitation of Yahweh, my house. Seek it. And there go, and I'll show you my judgments. Start doing my judgments, keeping my laws, and then I will show you my salvation. Only then, at my house, in my house. Can you get anything else out of that? That stands for sure. There is nothing that contradicts that scripture from one end of the Holy Scriptures to the other. In my house, or you're out of my face. As Cain said, you have driven me from your face this day. No, Cain himself drove himself from Yahweh's face that day. But he said, you put me out of your house. No, Yahweh said, straighten up, do this, and you will be acceptable in my house. Cain chose the other way, the way of continual war, and put himself out of Yahweh's house. Plain and simple. And this is exactly what's going on today. Now, Yahweh allows anyone who will to come and learn His judgments. Anyone who wants to. anyone who chooses to. He doesn't bar anyone, but he's not dragging them up here either. He's going to open some minds as he has prophesied, and nothing is done in his plan that wasn't prophesied in advance, if you remember that one. He's prophesied about 2 billion people in this time period, and we notice the numbers are picking up the request. They're learning, like the Samaritan woman started spreading the word. Well, it's spreading. We have found them. We have found them. And people are saying, we have found them. We have too. There's even a bunch out there that's saying, I am the house of Yahweh. I am the house of Yahweh. Another group I noticed the other day is saying, I am Yisrayl Hawkins. I am Yisrayl Hawkins. Well, there's a bunch of us now, going to be many, many more. You know, in spite of all the persecutions and the hatred, Yahweh's work has never stopped growing. It has just reached out step by step throughout the whole world. I will give to them in my house. You've got to remember this. There is no place found where Yahweh ever offers authority to anyone out of his house. No place in the Holy Scriptures. I will give to them in my house, even within my walls, a place. Now this house, of course, means people, but within my walls means the house that protects them, or where they hold the meetings. In my walls, a place, and a name. That word name. The word name means authority, as Genesis 1:26 shows. I will give them authority. And if you look this word up in Strong's, it actually shows that, meaning power, work, a part, a service like Yeshua was, where he actually served the people, taught the people, fed the people at Yahweh's house. Service, given a part. Well, that's shown, of course, in Revelations 20 and verse 6. If you'll hold your place there and turn over to Revelations, we're going to see this one fulfilled shortly too, very shortly. It's not going to be long till this Revelations 20. Hold your place in Isaiah 56. Go to Revelations 20. And here we see that the dragon is bound for 1,000 years and put in the bottomless pit, won't be loosed anymore until the 1,000 years are up. Then she'll be loosed after that 1,000 years for 100 years of trials for the people that are resurrected. Then verse 4, and I saw thrones and they that sat upon them. Thrones, these are powers, authority. I saw these thrones, Yachanan said, and judgment was given unto them. Judgment is given unto Yeshua. He's the firstborn of many brethren to receive this judgment or this authority. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Yeshua and for the word of Yahweh, who had not worshipped the beast. Worship the beast? You got to go to the beast to worship him. He's not here in Yahweh's house. The only way you can do it is go to them. And then they will start filling you with things, making you think you're teaching the peaceful solution to these people. You're not teaching the peaceful solution. You can't even teach it. You won't even be able to teach it until you get authority from Yahweh, from his house. If you go to church, you'll be worshiping the beast. Whether you know it or not, you'll be serving the beast. You won't be bringing people to Yahweh's house. You'll be helping to get people to the beast. The beast is all over the world at this time. The whole world is deceived, as Revelations 9:12-9 shows. Revelations 12:9 has deceived the whole world. But in the last days I will establish my house. Seek my house. Seek first my house and its righteousness. Then all these other things will be added to you. In my house, within my walls. That couldn't be plainer, brethren. You can't, there's no way you can deny what I've just shown you here. No way. Well, here's the rewards. Who had not worshipped the beast nor his likeness, neither had received its mark. That's keeping Sunday and the holidays. That's the mark of the beast. If you need that book, get it, The Mark of the Beast. They took away the feast days, the Sabbath days. You've got to keep his Sabbaths at his house in order to receive salvation. The rewards of the righteous, as is shown here in Revelations 20 and verse 4 through 6 here, and it only goes to those who will not take part with the beast in their work. You need to come out from them, as the great apostle Shaul just showed us. Come out from them and be separate. Don't be touching their uncleanness. And then I will receive you. Receive you, as is shown in Yachanan 1, verse 12. Those who received him, he gave this stuff. He gave them his salvation. Verse 5, and the rest of the dead live not again, the last part of verse 4, in their foreheads, nor upon their hands, and they lived and reigned with the Messiah 1,000 years. That's very shortly now before that time period will start. You have only a few days left to prove to Yahweh that you'll come out of this beastly system. But the rest of the dead live not again until the 1,000 years were finished. This is the first resurrection. The first resurrection. Blessed and holy is he who has part, or is given authority. Genesis 1:26, given authority. Isaiah 56:5, in my house, within my walls. Those who receive him, Yachanan 1, receive this plan of Yahweh, then I will give to them eternal life. Blessed and holy is he who has part in the first resurrection, on such the second death. So we see two deaths are spoken of. One is a final death that will not be resurrected. The first one, the second death, the first people here that's chosen in this time period, the second death will have no power on you. Period. You won't die again. It has no power, but they will be the priest of Yahweh and of the Messiah, and will reign with him that 1,000 years, and then the rest of the dead will be resurrected, and you will guide them then to salvation. Well, back to Isaiah now, 56. Remember what you just read. He's going to give that to you. It's going to be done within his house. Isaiah 56, verse 5. I will give them those seats of authority that you just read in Revelations 20, verse 6. That's the authority promised in Genesis 1:26. It goes all the way through the Holy Scriptures. This is Yahweh's plan of salvation, of making mankind in his likeness and in his image, then giving him these seats of authority. And brethren, if you're not steadfast, you're not proven to heaven, and Yahweh would never allow you in. For heaven to accept you, for the heavenly beings to accept Yahweh's house, first off, it's got to be proved to them that these people are loyal. Because these people, and this is what Satan hates about these people, about you, that you're going to be receiving authority like Yahweh has right now. Yahweh could destroy. He's the only being that could destroy the universe. He's the only being that could redo it. He allowed the earth to become that way. Then he redid the earth, and then he made mankind. That's his plan. I'll make man, I'll give him authority to rule the heavens. Now that's his plan. And you're going to have to be true, totally true to Yahweh. No leaving, no running off. Come here, keep your appointments with Yahweh, and if you will do this without polluting his Sabbath, and I've told you how you pollute it, we'll get deeper into that, but you pollute it by not following the example of Yeshua on his Sabbath days. And I will give to them in my house, even within my walls, a place equal to that, a name, equal to that of sons and daughters. I will give them the name of the everlasting Yahweh, which will not be cut off, not ever. Remember the song? We want to be called by your name. Also, verse 6, also the sons of the Gentiles who join themselves to Yahweh. This is something you do. You decide you join yourself to Yahweh, but you cannot join Yahweh and Mammon, as Yeshua said. You can't serve the two. What are the schools of higher learning but how to make more Mammon? Follow the Mammon. That's it. Well, their Mammon is collapsing on them at this time. Praise Yahweh. The sons of the Gentiles are strangers, heathen. These are all from Adam and Eve. They're from Noah's family. No, there's no different races. They either know Yahweh or they don't. But to the sons of those who don't know Yahweh, but join themselves to find out Yahweh, who join themselves to Yahweh to serve, not just to come and warm a seat, but to serve. Become a servant in Yahweh's house. Did you read that word? Look at it again there. Look at that word again. Why the purpose? What for? You're going to be servants of the beings throughout the universe. Your job is a servant. It's a teacher, a guide, a loyal student of Yahweh who has power to move mountains, move planets, in fact. Move planets. In one of the dreams that I had of this, one of the women was wanting to move a group of people to another location because the earth or the planet that they were on was still seeping some kind of uncleanness. And I asked a question, and they said, well, I can do it. And I said, I know you can. I know you have the power. I was just wondering why. But it was because the portion of the planet, well, they picked these people up with portions of clean mountains and lands, moved them halfway around the planet to another location to where this could not take place. Well, this was a dream, but I know it was coming from Yahweh to show the tremendous power that everyone is going to have, and the guides of the universe, to serve him. Notice to serve, to be a servant. Verse 6, Isaiah 56, verse 6, that's your purpose right there. Yeshua was the perfect servant. Isaiah 56, verse 6. Also, the sons of the strangers who don't know me yet, here's the house of Yahweh, come to my house. You don't know me yet, but here's the house, so come and I'll show you. Who join themselves to Yahweh to serve. You got it? Everybody see that word? That means you're going to start practicing to be servants. Not just any servant. You wouldn't go to Domino's Pizza. Do you know that's owned by the Catholic Church? Am I the only one that knows that? Who else knows that? It was just on the news. It's actually owned by the Catholic Church. I said, no wonder there's nothing in that thing that's clean. It's owned by the Catholic Church. You want to be a part of the beast? Why not get right straight under the Pope and go to Domino's Pizza? This is part of the world we've got to come out of. We can't be a part of the uncleanness. Touch not the unclean thing is a law. It's one of the laws of Yahweh that you've got to follow. Touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you. I will make man in my likeness and my image. The unclean does not touch Yahweh. That's the way you're going to have to learn to hate this stuff, brethren, or you'll never receive the blessing that comes with it. To serve Him and to love the name of Yahweh, to love it, that the authority of Yahweh. To love the authority of Yahweh is what that word actually means. Look it up for yourself. It means authority. Literally or figuratively, it says it means authority. The authority of Yahweh. I love it because Yahweh doesn't make mistakes. I make mistakes. And that's the reason I asked Yahweh every morning, please guide me every minute today so I won't be screwing something up. It's easily done with words and deeds and so forth. Well, the name of Yahweh, love the name or the authority of Yahweh, to be His servants, Everyone who keeps the Sabbath, do what? Everyone who keeps my Sabbath or keeps the Sabbath, did you get that? It's all specified right here for you. You're a fool if you don't believe all that the prophets have spoken. And this is what the witness that is spoken of back in Isaiah 44, this is his message to the world. This is the message that he's going to be bringing, and he is bringing it right now. On Yahweh's Sabbath, at His house, in His house, within His walls. I'm bringing this message. Who keeps my Sabbath? If you want to be a part of Yahweh, you're going to have to keep His Sabbath at His house, within His walls, without polluting, defiling them, and who holds fast to the covenant. The covenant, if you'll hold your place right there again and turn over to Hebrews, look over to Hebrews. I'll give you a page number here in just a second. Hebrews 9:49, I believe. Hebrews 9:49. Written here a little and there a little. He keeps my covenant. That's what the word said. Who holds fast to my covenant. Holds fast to my covenant. Hebrews 10, found on page 949. Hebrews 10, verse 16. 10, verse 16. Now remember what Isaiah said. Isaiah said, them who hold fast to the covenant, to my covenant. That's Yahweh's covenant. Now, verse 16 of Hebrews 10. This is book 2, so-called New Testament, says, this is the covenant. You got that? This is the covenant that Isaiah was speaking of. Who hold fast to my covenant. This is the covenant. This is the covenant that I will renew with them after those days, says Yahweh. I will put my laws in their hearts. In my house, even within my walls, I will put these laws in your heart. In their hearts. Where can you get them put in your heart? in the house of Yahweh. Within these walls I will do this for you on my Sabbath appointments. I will do this for you. No other place. You can't take it to Baal. In his meetings, they'll teach you. You can't take parts of Yahweh's peaceful solution character education to Baal. He won't accept it. If he would accept it, he'd have to come to Yahweh's house. If he wants to get Yahweh's power, he's got to come to his house. There Yahweh will teach him in his house, within his walls. There he will be taught this great truth, and there he will receive salvation. Back to Isaiah 56 in verse 6. Who my servants, to become my servants, everyone who keeps the Sabbath, meaning people who will not keep his Sabbath at his house within his walls, they won't receive it. Yahweh will have nothing to do with them. Everyone who keeps the Sabbaths without polluting them and holds fast my covenant, that I will teach them within my walls at my house. Well, those who will, then I will bring them to my holy promotion. This is the same wording that's used back in Isaiah 2:2. In the last days, I will establish the mountain of the house of Yahweh, the promotion of the house of Yahweh. And there you will become servants of Yahweh. I will bring them to my holy mountain and make them joyful in my house of prayer. Joyful? Joyful. We're going to see more of that. Joyful in my house. I will make them joyful in my house of prayer. That's where you get your requests. Prayers are requests. They're petitions to Yahweh. My time is up, and we just got started in it, but to me this is a very interesting subject, and I hope it is to you, where you'll remember what we just covered. There is just no way, brothers and sisters, that you can go anywhere else to receive this and receive authority, not only from Yahweh to do his work, but authority to receive the tree of life. That comes from Yahweh. Yahweh says he had to separate it, so else they would stick out their hand and take of the tree of life. So Yahweh says you've got to learn it first. You've got to let me make you in my image and in my likeness, then I will allow you to partake of the tree of life. I'll give you authority as Revelations 22:14. Blessed are those that do his laws, for they will be given right to the tree of life. May Yahweh bless you. I love you.